My name is Mary Carnahan, and I just want to welcome you all to our webinar today, Veteran eLearning Coaches Share Their Lessons Learned. We're really excited to kick off a new year of the eLearning Lab, which we used to call it the 21st Century Learning Lab, and we've updated it a little bit. We've revised the name a bit, and we've got new branding. So thank you to Jason Bailey on our team for the lovely new graphic that we have, and we're just really excited to kick off this full year with this topic, and we think it's going to be a popular one. As I have noted here on the screen, the audio, if you're hearing me, then you're connected to the audio. Yay, I'm glad that was successful. Anybody who is hearing us but can't get connected for whatever reason to the webinar on the computer, Michelle Green just tweeted out via the eLearn Twitter handle. She tweeted out another URL to use to connect to the webinar. So if you are having problems, please check out the @eLearn handle on Twitter and see if that website that she tweeted out is helpful to you. Hopefully you all have opened up the chat, or you have the chat box open. I have directions on the screen that I think are not up to date, kind of like with the small or big changes to the eLearning Lab. We've also had some changes to our WebEx program that we use for our webinars, and I believe now that you'll click on, I think that you're seeing the webinar in a portion of your screen on the left, and then on the right, the top right, there will be a button to click on for chat, and that will open your chat window. While you are, I see several people are entering stuff into the chat window, and that is awesome. One issue that I know one thing that some people are not doing is next to send to, it defaults to only send to me, and I want everybody to be able to see your questions and comments and introductions. So please, next to that send to, from that drop down, pick everyone, so that everyone in the group will see your comments. And please introduce yourself. Use that chat box throughout the webinar today to ask questions of our presenters or of each other, make comments, share resources and ideas. This is not just an hour to learn from our three wonderful presenters, but also to do some networking. Also share your Twitter handles, your individual Twitter handles, and maybe even your school Twitter handles. Again, network. Use this hour as a place to not only learn from our presenters, but get connected to other e-learning coaches. As my boss often says, and as I hear many people say, the smartest person in the room is the room, and my goodness, we've got a big room throughout the state of Indiana of wonderful e-learning coaches. So please use yourself, use each other as a resource. So we do have three wonderful presenters, and I will introduce them in a few minutes. But first, I just want to talk about a few other things. We do have other PD opportunities coming up. We have 2 webinars in the next month that I have scheduled, and there will be more, and just keep an eye out on our website and on social media for information regarding these webinars. Next Tuesday, September 22nd, we will have a webinar with NBC Learn. We are really excited to be able to share the NBC Learn resource with the entire state of Indiana, both at school and at home for teachers and students. So come back a week from today, a week from right now, and hear Cindy Harrison from NBC Learn talk about that resource. Whether you're new to it or you are experienced, you might learn some new things. You never know. And then on October 6th, we are excited to have 2 techie teachers joining us, and they will be sharing just how to integrate technology and to get our kids more connected in the elementary level. So we are excited to welcome them to the e-learning Lab. Also Twitter, as I already talked about, Twitter is a great way to stay connected to each other and also to us at the Office of eLearning. Using the eLearning or the INELearn hashtag, you can connect to each other. And also we tweet at INELearn. I didn't include that here because I was just kind of sticking with the Twitter chats, which we do have Twitter chats every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. This week's topic is our Leading by Example series, which is on the third Thursday, and this week is Leading and Flipping, which the flipping will come into our conversation today also. That's a theme through the day. So I'm going to keep people muted. If you will also just continue to keep your phone muted, that would be wonderful so that we don't have background noise as our presenters are sharing today. And without further ado, we do have three wonderful presenters today. Robbie Grimes was also supposed to be joining us, but he is a bit under the weather this afternoon, so we're sad to not have him, but we're excited to have the other three e-learning folks with us today. We have Shelley Coover, who's an instructional coach from Noblesville Schools, and Amy Everhart, who wears two hats. I'm the Special Education Coordinator and District Technology Coach with Liberty Perry, and Lance Yoder, who is the Technology Integration Coordinator with MSD of Steuben County. And we are really grateful to have these three folks joining us today. And I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Shelley. And as I said, please utilize the chat box to ask questions, make comments. The presenters may answer your questions throughout the conversation, and if they don't answer your question, we will get to it. I'll make sure that I note questions that aren't answered throughout the conversation, and we will have some time at the end to answer questions that have come up or that come up at the very end. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Shelley.
Thank you, Mary. I'm glad to be with everybody today. I'm going to start off talking about Evernote, and I have down here on this first slide that it's a must-have for coaches. 5 years ago, I was an elementary principal, and I tried to figure out Evernote and use it on my own, and I think I just had too much going on in my life. I wish I would have taken the time to master it then because it would have been so helpful. But when I got into this position, I was like, okay, no ifs, ands, or buts, I'm going to tackle this, and I'm so glad I did because I could not live without it. It's a must-have for coaches because it goes across all platforms, and I can pick up right where I left off on my phone, my iPad, or on my laptop. So if you want to go ahead and move the slide forward, Mary, we'll jump in and start talking about it. The great thing about Evernote is that you have a common place to have a lot of different notebooks. So it organizes a lot.
I'm for a webinar right now from 4 to 5, but I'm on mute, so I'm going to stick the headphones in here a minute. So the color that you did last time.
Whoops. Are we still connected? Okay. So it's a common place where you can have a lot of different notebooks. So this is a picture, just a screenshot of some of my notebooks. And what I love is that you can share notebooks. So over on the right-hand side, you'll see some of those say ISTE, and it's got like a little group of people underneath it. But those are notebooks that we share in our department or that I share with certain teachers. And they can collaborate and add things to those notebooks. Go ahead, Mary, if you wouldn't go to the next slide. Within each notebook, you compile notes, and what I love about these notes is you can do so many things with them. So if I have a brainstorm about something, I can make some notes and then go back and add to them. All your notes then you can put into a notebook, and this is, you can see at the top here inside my professional development ideas notebook, I have a lot of things ongoing here. The note in front of you is one that we're working on to share some different reading resources with teachers. And this Evernote is my go-to tool when I attend conferences. And one of the things I love is that while I'm taking notes, I put a little icon up here in the corner to remind people, you always have the option of recording the audio. So I've read a lot about Evernote. People will take notes in their college classes because you can be typing notes but then also record as you go so that later when you're reviewing things, you have that as an option. Or for us, when we have a shared notebook from conferences and we all go to different sessions and try to share resources, then rather than just getting the gist of it from my notes, one of my partners, coaching partners, can actually listen to the session. And you can go ahead and go forward for me, Mary. A new feature with Evernote is that you can actually take your notes and turn them on the fly into a presentation. So this is just, it looks a little different, but I wanted to throw in a visual here for you to see how that works. So it just basically takes that note and projects it into a slide version. Go ahead and go forward. The sharing options are awesome. So you can share notes with a person, a group of people. You'll see here in that little picture within a picture that I have, you can send people a link. I've been to conferences where people have their handouts as an Evernote and they just share the link. You can post them publicly to a website. And of course, you can put them, in a notebook and then share the notebook. I see that somebody put a question here, Kelly, can you talk about how Evernote is better than Google Docs and shared folders in Google Drive? I think what I like, I use Google also, so we're a Google district and having Google Docs and Google Drive is big in our district, but the thing I like about Evernote is that somebody doesn't have to be in Google for me to share things and collaborate with them. And so for me, that takes things like outside the district, and when you don't know what platform or how people are using things, once you can get a URL or that link to the document, then they have it and can collaborate with me. I also like that I'm able to, you'll see in a minute on the next slide, go ahead, Mary, I can actually tag things and put them into the notebooks. So I can't live without the Evernote WebClipper. And I took a picture here of my browser window with that open. And I did a search yesterday for an article on using Evernote. And what I can do then is just clip that article. Go ahead to the next slide, Mary. And when that happens, it brings up these options. And so you have options for how you clip the article. I chose simplified article here, but it will do the whole article, full page, and then you select what notebook you want that to go in. So I actually have an Evernote notebook that I keep tips and tricks that I come across for Evernote in there, and then go ahead to the next slide, Mary. Once you have chosen that, it brings up and shows me that it's going to go in my notebook. It shows me it clipped it there, but then I still have all these options, so I can post it on Twitter, post it on Facebook, again, share a URL, I can email it. So there's just tons of options for what you can do in Evernote. And I'll have you go to the next screen, Mary. Then this is just showing you back when I open up my Evernote notebook, I'm seeing all these things here. So in my notebook I have, it's compiled of not only my own notes, but articles, videos. If you pay, Evernote is free, but there is a premium subscription, and I have that. And with the premium subscription, you can email things to certain notebooks. So if I come across something or somebody sends me an email, and I'm like, oh, I want to put that in my Evernote notebook, then I send that to that address and put the hashtag Evernote, and it will go in this notebook for me. Hashtags and tagging is big in Evernote, so I can go into Evernote at any time and search for, one-to-one initiatives or anything that I have in here. It'll bring me to any notes or resources that I have linked there. Another reason that I really love using Evernote is that when I meet with teachers and I'm collaborating with people, I like to think that I have a good memory, but that's why Evernote's symbol is the elephant, because elephant never forgets. If I'm taking notes in Evernote, I'm always going to have what I need when I'm with those people. and it's a good way to refresh my memory about what we talked about or what we're trying to do, especially when I'm planning projects with teachers or planning with principals about professional development. And Mary, you can go forward for me. And then I wanted to end by just telling you guys there are so many resources. Sometimes Evernote doesn't start out seeming like a very intuitive tool, but if you stick with it, you will not be sorry. And honestly, I barely skimmed the surface today of the things that you can do with Evernote. I just feel like as a coach, it's a great place for you to start sorting your resources. So if you're coming across things like, oh, here are great things about blogging, or here are some great things about app smashing, you can start combining those into a notebook, and then you can go there and sort it out and decide, like, okay, do I want to make a flyer? What do I want to use for my next professional development? So there's an actual YouTube channel for Evernote, lots of great things there. In Pinterest, you'll get overwhelmed and waste a lot of time on a Saturday or a Sunday scrolling through those. And then I put a link here to 30 tips and tricks that every Evernote user must know. Down in the left-hand corner, there are also some sister programs with Evernote. It's really a whole suite of apps. So Sketch lets you annotate on PDFs that you might have in here. Pen Ultimate lets you take like handwritten notes and tag them in Evernote. So I just really encourage you to explore with it, and please know you can reach out to me if you have questions. So thanks for listening, and that's my part of today's program. Mary?
Thank you so much, Shelley. And I was just asking you, do you have those links available that where you could post them in the chat window?
Yes, I can do that.
Awesome, because you can't click on them in the webinar, so we can share them later. But if you have them accessible now, that would be great. Do you want to answer this question now that just came up? Somebody just asked, how is this different than Digo?
Yeah. Well, the way I think it's different is that again, I'm going to go back to those notebooks. I can combine those in things where, like, I have my own notes plus articles I've gathered plus websites plus, you know, if I share a notebook with somebody, I have all of that information in one place. So to me, that's how it's a little bit different than that tool.
Very good. Okay, thank you so much, Shelley. And now we will move on to Amy Everhart. And are you unmuted, Amy?
Hear me okay?
I can hear you now, yep.
Okay. I'm double duty, so I'm playing mom as well. So if you hear a little one in the background, I apologize. I am Amy Everhart, and I'm a district technology coach and special ed coordinator out at Liberty Perry School. And on this slide, you will see my Twitter handle as well as my email. Like Mary said, feel free to reach out. We all learn from each other. My biggest thing is to reinvent the wheel. If there's something that I have that you want, then just ask. Let's save each other time. I know work together. I know we're all limited in this position. Go ahead to the next one. And I need to pull up my notes real quick. So this slide, again, I talked about as a coach, there are going to be so many resources. I know a lot of them do the same thing. So my suggestions as to the other coaches is to pick one tool. Don't feel like you have to teach them all and teach it. For example, like we use Notability. So I stick with that when it comes to an app where they're on a whiteboard and need to do those things. There's a million others out there. But if you just pick one and teach it, I feel like that helps the teachers. They're overwhelmed with the amount of choice, so they look for that guidance as well. Again, take small steps. We did a training on Twitter, and I feel like, need to break it down into very small steps. I kind of say spoon feed it to them. So literally, I created a short video on simply how to change your profile picture. And then we did a separate lesson on just how to change the background. A lot of times with technology, I feel like teachers jump because they're overwhelmed with the amount of information coming to them. I'm actually reading Matt Miller's book for the book club, and one of his quotes in there was in like reference to a fire hose, and that you can't just drink from the fire hose, so we need to take them in small steps. So I'm ready for the next one. Again, this is where I share my contact information. There's so much out there when it comes to technology, but as with everything, I feel like there's so little time. So we need to work smarter, not harder. Don't reinvent the wheel. Let's collaborate. I know that there was a Twitter challenge that another district did, and so we simply asked for that challenge and then tweaked it to meet our district needs. I will, in another slide, I have a link to where our district hub is for resources. Feel free to borrow anything if you want to edit it. Again, there's so much out there, so I feel like if we can work together and share our resources, we're going to be able to do more within our districts and the state overall. The other piece from there, I have the steps. Again, break things down for your staff, but also for yourself. As I find I'm the district tech coach, and we have 2 tech coaches in each building. So if we can break a task into steps and we all create one video, they're smaller, they're more manageable, and we can get that much more information out there. So baby steps. I'm ready for the next one. When we are delivering our professional development, I really feel like it's important that it's leveled. We have teachers at all levels. Some are more advanced than others. And if you do one training, I often feel teachers get discouraged because it is either too slow or too fast for them. So we try to offer beginner and advanced level training. But our training is ongoing. We are constantly offering trainings throughout the summer. We actually send a survey out, ask teachers what topics they want, and we train all summer in our district. We also continue to train throughout the school year. We find that time gets a little more hectic as teachers are planning and doing things, but we want to make sure that we're still giving them new tools and things to keep their instruction new and fresh and ways to make things easier for them. But just make sure that it's always ongoing. They can always reach out so that they don't feel like, oftentimes we go to conferences and we get these great ideas, but then they sit on the table until we're actually able to implement them. And that's where, too, if you can find ways to get into the classroom, if you can deliver that initial lesson, a lot of times that will help those teachers bridge that gap. So, next slide. So things that we have tried in our district, we have obviously promoted conferences, things like the Summer of eLearning. The biggest thing if you have teacher conferences, is to make sure that they are coming back and sharing that information. I know sometimes that we have them coming back and present at a next faculty meeting, or depending on their level of comfort, maybe they can create a quick video. So these vary, but it makes sure that if you're sending teachers that information is getting out to the other staff as well. Again, I talked about doing in-house professional development. We are big on this in our district because we feel like our people respond well from learning with each other. If their neighbor can do it, it's something they feel like they can tackle too. The other side is that is tailored to our district needs. So we can offer training specific to what our teachers want to know or have an interest in knowing. Again, we do that summer. We offer that after school. We offer that as well during the day, where they can come in during their prep. And they also have access to the 2 coaches in their building for when immediate things come up. I'm sorry I keep hiding that, but I keep hitting it again. We use short videos. I like to use QuickTime. Again, there's a million tools out there, but it's the one I started with, so I'm still using it. The key here is being short. We find that our teachers will watch a quick 1-minute video, but for them to find 5 minutes to sit down, again, sometimes is too much. So just pick one skill or one step. Like I talked about with Twitter, simply changing their profile picture, simply adding a bio. Each one of those are separate videos. And again, all of those are out on our district page if you want to look at some examples of those. And there's the link to my Google site right there. That was my way. I had to find a way to get my resources out to teachers. And this was the easiest way I found to do that. I modeled this off. Kelly Clifford had done a test hub for her district, and that was kind of my platform to develop this with resources. Anytime I find a good tool, I'll link to that tool. This is where I'll post my videos. It's kind of interesting with the videos we find in our district. The teachers want to hear from us rather than us linking to a YouTube video, so we try to do that as much as possible, but we still reference things out on YouTube, and they still do in their classroom as well. But to give them a stance, they know they're giving YouTube videos to their students, maybe they should create their own video as well. The challenges have gotten the best response. In our district, we simply offer a challenge, and they may have a task to complete each week. This is how we did our Twitter challenge, and getting them to change things on their Twitter profile, getting them signed up, things like that. We all have a competitive nature, but we also have badges, so it's kind of like the stickers. You know, we all work toward elementary. They want the badge outside of their room, and then their colleague sees it outside of their room, and then they want one too. So again, if their neighbor can do it, so can they. And I actually saw an interesting badging system that I'd like to see if I can implement something a little closer to in our district. From, if you Google the Denton Instructional Technology, they have a badging website and how they're doing it in their district. It's pretty neat. Last piece is incentives to get teachers there. We find food always brings teachers. The badges, again, are a good way to get teachers to participate in the PD. We offer some tech things like screen cleaners, or get them an app or things like that. One that's really, really works well, that's free, and you know, in districts I know we're all tight on money, was a free Gene Day. So that was something that we included as a prize in each building. Next slide. So the biggest thing I found is that teachers don't know what they don't know. So how do we get them to come and participate in the training? Again, I've talked about what we've tried. Sometimes if I say I'm offering a Kahoot training, that doesn't mean anything to them. So we've talked about doing little commercials for our professional development as ways to, you know, get them there, tell them what the tool is. Again, badges makes things competitive. But again, the best advertisement that we found is having the teacher next door to them sharing what they're doing. Again, the biggest way we like to do that in our district is on Twitter. They can share what they're doing. Their peers that may not literally be next door to them may check the district hashtag, see something cool they did in their classroom, and then reach out to someone else in their building and outside of the building. So it's really helped in getting our teachers to try things by getting them on Twitter. And the last slide I have is moving forward. There's always ways to grow. So another way that we want to try to get PD out to our teachers is lunch and learn. During the day, you know, teachers already have activities planned for their prep, or, you know, they're ambitious and think, hey, I can come down during my prep, and then a kid comes in or something comes up. But everyone typically stops for lunch. So just using that time in the teacher's lounge to say, or wherever you want to host it, to let them eat their lunch, but you share the tool during that time. And we also are going to make sure we're getting our parents involved in the professional development, making sure that our parents know how to use the tools as well. A lot of times teachers are getting emails from parents just for those troubleshooting things, so the more we can educate parents. But we'll tackle the same battles with the parents as they do with the teachers, and how do we get them there, and will it be the ones that need to be there? So that's kind of an overview of, I guess, some of my tips, things that we've tried, some things I feel like have worked with the new coaches.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy, for that. That's lots of great information. Somebody asked about what you use for badging. What are you using for badging?
We honestly are kind of creating our own. Like some of these icons here are from Canva. So we have used that, but just I follow Shake Up Learning. It's another blog. Sometimes I feel like I'm following. So Shake Up and that another, but Shake Up Learning has posted a similar to just using, we're a Google school, so using Google Drawings to create their own. But I really like Canva. I feel like there's free icons and it makes it pretty easy. And I need to check out that the school that I talked about that's already doing their badging system. That I got from the resource from Shake Up Learning. I can't remember what they're using to create their badges.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. And it looks like several other people have shared some other resources. So, again, lots of great information, and thank you for all of that, Amy. And we will now move on to Lance Yoder, who's going to talk a little bit about Flip PD.
Hi, how's it going?
Great. Thanks, Lance. Go ahead.
Okay, so I decided to go on a little bit of a different route here as far as this is kind of where I am right now in my training with my teachers. And so I'm coming from a previous district where I was in 2 schools, and now I'm helping 6 schools. So I'm trying to spread myself out more. I'm trying to find ways to just duplicate myself this year. So I started working on, I've always done some form of Flip PD, but I don't think I've gone at it quite as hard as I am right now, just trying to extend myself. So the whole idea is that it's just like a flipped classroom, and I'm trying to give the teachers some things to think about before we meet. So go ahead and flip the slide. And the reason this all came up was just because the whole idea behind flipped classroom is the idea that you have the time to meet with students and you give them materials to work on. You have that time to work with them, and they can work at their own pace. They can accomplish tasks and not have to wait on their classmates or wait on you. They can move on to the next step, and you can assist them through that learning process. And so I'm kind of there with my teachers as well. The teachers are not any different. They have different needs. They have different interests. And since I'm attempting to work with kindergarten through 12th grade, I'm dealing with a wide variety of needs here. So by flipping, I have a little more time to be able to say, okay, here are the basic skills, and then I'll work with you maybe in a small group, or I'll work with you individually. So go ahead and go to the next slide, please. I guess one of the biggest things that I've found, I hope no one's offended by my Buns on Benches comment, one of my biggest things that I've found is that the sit and get, yeah, sometimes you can feel like things went really well. I mean, it's not any different than when you lecture in front of the class. It can feel like you're really rolling, you're doing a good lecture, and you have some students really interested, but sometimes it's a false sense of learning. Sometimes you feel like maybe you presented it really well, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone was getting it, and that doesn't mean necessarily that everyone was following along. I think everyone understands that. Everyone here being educators, I think everyone fully understands that students don't learn best doing whole class lectures all the time. And I kept asking myself as I was training teachers, why am I doing whole group sessions like this? Why this isn't working? I'm not doing a good job of following up. I'm not doing a good job of meeting individual needs. At some point in time, I gave up on after-school sessions altogether and just fully focused on meeting with teachers individually and using tools like Evernote, which was mentioned, and documenting and keeping track of where teachers were. But since I am dealing with a larger scale now, I'm coming back to the point where I have to do after school training sessions again. So go ahead and go to the next slide. And I already kind of referenced to this already, but personalizing the PD is difficult if you're just doing after-school sessions. And by me giving assignments ahead of time and saying, okay, here's a model by which you can start getting going on this concept, and then I can meet with you and we can discuss specifically what your needs are, then if that's the case, I can come back to that person. I have already done a lot of the legwork with them, and we can fine-tune those specific tech skills or instructional skills that they want to work on. I'll go ahead and go to the next one. Something else that I'm kind of working on along with this whole Flip PD thing is kind of having a theme with my tech trainings after school or even during lunch. What I'm tending to do is focus on one specific set of skills. Amy talked about keeping videos short, keeping skills very short, and so I'm kind of going in with that I'm having little tools here and there that I go over that are all related in some way. So for example, in this month, I'm specifically focusing on communication tools. How can we as teachers improve communication with students? How can we as teachers improve communication with parents in the community? And so that's this month. Next month, I'm going to be focusing actually on flipped learning. And so the tools that are all involved with that and what skills they need to know in order to be successful with that. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And so what does it look like? I have an example of my nerd newsletter, and I'm going to include the link here. Let me copy the link. Give me a second, and I'll put it in the chat box. Okay, and so that's my nerd newsletter. I'm kind of giving teachers an overview of what I'm up to and what I'm doing in classrooms, but I also cover, hey, here are my upcoming trainings, and here are the prerequisites that you need to do before you show up. Now, this is very new to this staff. They've never done anything like this. A lot of these teachers, a lot of the teachers that I'm working with haven't even heard of flipped learning, actually, and so it's a foreign concept to some. So I have to overcome that as well. But the idea is that they spend some time. Like, for example, I'm doing a session on Blogger on Thursday. They spend some time getting their account set up and getting their blog set up and getting those fine details worked out beforehand that I really don't need to hold their hand through. They can work those details out. Next slide, please. After that, I want to make the meetings that I hold after school, I want to make them shorter. However, I put in quotation marks shorter there. Oh, sorry about my sound effects. I put in quotation marks shorter there because I haven't been very successful with that yet. Because, like I said, the teachers aren't quite accustomed to this idea of doing flipped PD yet. And so this is a learning process for them as well. And so my meetings have been a little longer, but my goal is to get them nice and short. Let's do a half-hour meeting after school instead of a whole hour or an hour and a half. We're eating up a lot of people's time. And so by doing shorter sessions, I can spend time talking a little more about the actual use of the tool, not so much the fine, the nuts and bolts of it, of how to get it set up. And I want to get more into, okay, let's talk about the implementation of it. How is this going to enhance the learning experience for your students? How is this going to better your classroom? And so I want to focus on that in my meetings instead of let's talk about, okay, now click here to turn on your account. Click here to set up the background on this website or whatever. I'd rather be able to focus on let's get teachers discussing the implementation of that tool. Okay. Okay. Go ahead and go to this one. The other thing that I'm doing is in those meetings, I'm giving the teachers actually a chance. In this last meeting that I did, I set up a Google Doc or a Google form, or I did the same thing with Padlet, or they can just email me. But one of the things I'm trying to do is have the teachers share okay, now that I have that, chat a little bit and have teachers share with each other what's going on and what's going on and what's working for you and what do you understand, what don't you understand, what is it that you need to know in order to make this work for you in the classroom. And so that's where teachers can voice the frustrations that they have or the ideas or the thoughts or maybe questions that they have. And so that also gives me a place where I can look back and I can follow up with that teacher. And so I think that's vitally important. That is not only do they have the ability to communicate their thoughts and their feelings about a tool, but that I get back with them and I say, hey, let's chat, let's sit down together after we've met as this whole group. Let's sit down and chat and let's work out the fine details and make this work for you. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And then a lot of times my follow-up sessions, it might be a small group. Maybe I have a few teachers in a building that have similar questions or similar needs when I look at the Google Doc or I look at the Padlet. And I'm meeting with them to fine-tune the details. And not only that, a lot of times I'll just do individual sessions just to work with them specifically to meet their needs. Also, part of the follow-up might be a classroom observation or modeling in the classroom. Maybe they want to get it going in the classroom, a digital tool of some sort going in their classroom. And so maybe I'll come in and I'll visit and I'll get things launched for them so that way they feel confident that their students will be fluent in using the tech tool of whatever it is we're working on. Usually most of my follow-up is just through email, but occasionally it needs maybe a little more attention and I need to work specifically with those individuals. Just in the previous session, someone mentioned, or I shouldn't say someone, it was Amy. Amy mentioned that she uses badges, and this is something I'm exploring as far as how can I give teachers credit other than just PGPs, but how can I help them feel encouraged about, hey, look at all the things that I participated in, look at all the activities I've done after school, and I'm working on improving my skills as a teacher. So, and I think that's pretty much it. Do I have any more slides after this? I can't remember.
Nope, that's your last slide.
That's my last one. Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot, Lance. Lots of great information from Shelley, Amy, and Lance, all three of you. Thank you all so much, and thank you for taking the time out of your, as we all know, busy schedules to prepare for this and to do this webinar for us. Let's see. Good question from Michelle. How are you motivating teachers? That this is probably something that new coaches are trying to figure out how to do. So, Amy, Lance, Shelley, any of you want to chime in on how you're motivating teachers?
Sure, I can. I'm still on. I think the biggest motivator, it's just the same as with students, and that is build a relationship with them and get to know them and listen. Spend some time just letting them maybe vent a little bit. I think that makes the biggest difference. And I think once you develop that trust with them, and it takes a lot of time. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes a lot of time. But I think once you start developing that trust with them, they'll start listening more and more to you, and they'll come to those after-school trainings, and they'll be more receptive.
I agree with what Lance just said. This is Shelley. I'll put a link in here. We try to kind of balance out things that we decide the professional development topic on versus letting the teachers. And we do something when we have early release Wednesdays here in Noblesville, and we'll do an early release Wednesday that's called Design Your Own Learning. So the teachers get to decide what they want to learn about, and then we either send them resources ahead of time or pair them up with somebody that we know does something. I have all this laid out, and I use those s'more flyers. I'll put the link in here, but we have found that like when teachers can get involved in something they want to learn about, it does two things. They're more motivated, but then it also gives us an idea of like, okay, what are the things people want to learn about? And then I can go follow up with people. For instance, on the last time we had this, we had a group of people who were really wanting to learn about Erasmus. And so then I followed up with them and have been seeing like, well, what projects are you doing with it? And then making sure that those get out so other people can learn about it, which would motivate them to want to do it. So it's just something you kind of have to like always cultivate and grow.
And going back to what Lance said, and something that I also saw that Michelle commented about, sometimes if you get to those harder, those teachers that seem harder to get to, whether they're really stubborn and set in their ways, I've been doing it the same way for this long and it's been serving me well. If you can get to those, sometimes that other teachers see that and go, okay, well, if this teacher is doing it, then surely it's if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me, or if other people see success. So another question that came up was, does your school pay stipends to teachers for attending training? And again, any of you three that want to chime in, go ahead.
In Noblesville, we do not.
No, we don't either.
At Liberty Perry, we do offer the stipend in the summer, but not throughout the school year.
Okay, thank you all for that. If anybody else has questions, please feel free to share them in the chat box. I'll go ahead and talk about some contact information, but please feel free to submit any other questions that you might have. Someone did ask about if we are archiving this webinar, and the answer is, fingers crossed, yes, that I am recording this webinar, and as long as technology works the way that it should, I will have it recorded. We have made some changes in our the way we share webinars in our e-learning lab. We used to have a blog, but had problems with that working with, I think, maybe all but one browser, maybe two browsers worked with it. So I am working on getting all of our past and now our future webinars archived onto our YouTube channel. There's a playlist for our e-learning lab, and I believe that Michelle shared a link to that, so thank you very much, Michelle. And there's also a link to our e-learning lab page on our website. But this page just lists lots of different ways to keep in contact with us at the Office of eLearning at the Department of Education. And most of these links you can find by going to our homepage, which is that first link, and then social media. There is a social media link, and that will get you to all of the social media sites listed below. And I also mentioned that I totally forgot to include it on my screen earlier, but we are hosting a book club right now. We are reading Matt Miller's book, Ditch That Textbook, and you can find information on that on our website also, and I included the website for that directly to that blog a little bit earlier. Let's see, I think we had one more question come in. It was, how do you help teachers from constantly chasing new tools and focus on changing their learning space and classroom? More about how you use the tool and not which tool to use. So why don't we go ahead and have this be our last question? And again, any of Amy, Shelley, or Lance, if you all would like to chime in, go ahead.
I don't have much, Amy. Honestly, I find my teachers are sometimes overwhelmed with the amount of tools, so they're often coming to me saying, take a tool, you've played with them all, tell me which one to use.
Hey, Lance or Shelley, do you have anything to share on that question?
I would say, this is Shelley in Noblesville, that we are in the second year in our middle schools of a one-to-one iPad initiative. And in the beginning, we did have teachers who were like, oh, I want an app for this, or they kept looking for apps. Pretty quickly, everybody realized that there are only, maybe 10 apps you need to know that are really going to get the job done. And we're really big in our district of when we meet with people saying, like, what is the student learning going to be? What are you trying to accomplish with student learning? And then that kind of takes away some of that, like, just looking for an app or a wow thing. And when we start talking about the curriculum and what we want to do, it's usually easy for me then to guide them to, like, something we already know or do. A lot of times they haven't even explored all of the possibilities that we have with apps. For example, last year when we started with Notability, I mean, it was like, into second semester and people were still discovering, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you could do that with Notability. So a lot of times they have everything they need at their fingertips and you don't have to go find something new. Like, try to direct the conversation back to learning. And quite honestly, sometimes when you're doing that, you realize that, technology doesn't need to play a part here. Like, this is something we should just have kids do on paper. So that's what we try to do.
No, I think I would have to agree with Shelley. I think what tends to happen is when school districts first start, that's typically what teachers do, is they'll get all excited and they'll check a lot of apps. But after time goes on, they kind of calm down a little bit and they do focus on those specific. So I don't have anything new to share. I think Shelley pretty well covered what I was thinking as well.
Great. Well, again, I think that's a pretty great question to close out on. So thank you again, Amy, Shelley, and Lance for sharing in this great, really informative hour. And I had someone earlier ask about sharing the slideshow, and I will share that. How about we do that via Twitter? I'll get that saved maybe out to my Google Drive and get that shared tomorrow so that everybody who got to listen but couldn't get connected to the website can view that. And again, I hope to have the webinar archived and shared on our YouTube channel early next week, and we can tweet that out also when we get that shared. So again, thank you to Amy, Lance, and Shelley, and thank you all for joining us today in the eLearning Lab, and we hope to see you next week for the NBC Learn webinar. Thanks a lot. Have a great evening.